Hello everybody, and welcome to my second video I'm making for my channel. This is Dispel speaking. This second video I'm doing is is going to be about Christianity mostly. So I grew up Christian. I grew up Catholic mostly. I was born in Egypt, and Egypt is pretty much. The more you watch my videos, there's going to be a video I'm going to be making about Egypt, Egyptology in general. Most of this stuff is kind of well known already. It's in common culture, but a lot of it has been forgotten. So I'm going to kind of revisit it. But so the topic is Christianity, and Christianity is something that's been with us for several thousand years now. So it's a recurring theme, and it's a major religion. So here we are. So I was born Catholic. My father is actually Coptic, which is, well, so Coptic is Christian Egyptian, not necessarily Orthodox, but his family comes from an Orthodox background, and it's tied to Greek Orthodoxy and Eastern European Orthodoxy, that whole realm. But I kind of grew up. I grew up here in Canada, and when I came here, I experienced both Protestantism and Catholicism. So those two were the closest things to religion that I experienced here. And I grew up in that realm, and I've experienced a lot of interesting things, good, bad things, and mediocre things. So I'm going to kind of go through as much as I can about my experience, but mostly what I'm going to be talking about in this video is what is Christianity? Why are what are we practicing exactly? What exactly are we practicing with Christianity? And I'm going to discuss this with all kinds of different religions. I'm not going to just go through Christianity. I'm going to talk about Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam. I'm going to talk about the different paganism that's out there. So each one of those deserves their own video, but I want to make a video specifically for each one of them, and this particular one is about Christianity because obviously I grew up Christian and I know it very well. So I want to kind of start by just talking about where it comes from, and I kind of went through that a little bit in the beginning, mentioning Egypt, and Egypt is the birthplace of Christianity, believe it or not. There's ample information, ample evidence that it is the beginning. It is the civilization that created what Western civilization will become. And a lot of people don't either believe that, or there has been a chasm or a gap of information throughout history, through a particular time in history, that people are not willing to either remember, recall, recollect, or bring, or emphasize in the history books. It's emphasized just briefly, but not really. So I call it the Mediterranean gap, because that's the distance. That's the area between Europe and Africa, and that gap, that whole sea is, I call it the sea of lost knowledge, because and I think this ties into the whole Atlantis myth about an island that was basically flooded and destroyed by a volcanic eruption a long time ago. That's Atlantis. That's the basic concept of Atlantis, but I don't consider it like that. I consider the entire sea as the sea of lost knowledge, because it has so much. There is so much information being shared back and forth between Europe and Africa at that point in time, throughout our civilizational history, especially Western civilization. So Egypt is the starting point. It is the starting point. Where Egypt comes from, its own origin is, again, in another video I'm going to talk about the Nubians, and I'm going to talk about sub-Saharan Africa. I'm going to talk about the rise of civilization in general when it started becoming organized, before it started getting into the kingdom portion of things, because I don't think kingdoms were things that were prevalent before Egypt. I think before Egypt there were no real kingdoms, and I think Egypt was a symbol, and is a symbol, I consider it, for the first becoming, the first nation becoming, like the first nation, basically, you know. So there's extensive information there. There's extensive archaeological evidence that we're going to go through, but that's in another video that talks more about Egypt. In this video, it's about Christianity, and going back to the whole idea of and concept of Christianity, we want to talk about the symbols that are in Christianity. There are very important symbols. There's a lot of things that are read in the Bible are misunderstood, okay? And they're misunderstood for specific reasons, and not for bad reasons, for good reasons, but at the same time they are misleading because it's the wrong information. The real information lies within the symbols of this religion. It is the cross. It is the numeral aspect of it. It's the repeating the 12 disciples, the 7 seals, the Trinity, the 3 wise kings, or the 3 kings that came to Jesus in the manger and gave him and presented gifts. All these repeating numerals, and it's throughout the whole book and throughout the New Testament. It's just a continuation of what was written before. So all of these things tie into Egyptian mythology. They tie into Egyptian ritual. And why do they tie into the Egyptian ritual basis? Is because Egypt has been a stable society, civilization, for thousands of years before Christianity came along. Christianity came into a fertile area, a fertile conscious area, a consciousness. We're not talking, when we're talking about religions, we're talking about lots of things, but we're also talking about consciousness. Was there a group of people that perfected themselves? They've lived peacefully for thousands of years. When you live peacefully for thousands of years, you have a lot of time to build. A lot of time. There's a lot of fighting. There's lots of many conflicts, many deaths, many issues, hardships, horrible things that people in the past have experienced. But Egypt, building that thousands of years to have, of no major empires coming to take you over or whatever. There are no conquests outside your local area, local region. It allows you to build a knowledge base that is massive, and that's exactly what happened. And so a lot of the stuff that happened in Egypt has been lost, has been burned. It's been considered horrible. It's been considered by many religions. Islam came into Egypt and did its damage, of course, and it continues to kind of do its damage. So every religion, every other people that came after the ancient Egyptians, all they did was take from the ancient Egyptians. So in the end, ancient Egypt is the basis. It is the encyclopedia or the foundation of Western civilization. It is not the Greeks, because it is the Greeks. It's every nation, not just the Greeks, not just the Egyptians, not just the Romans. It is every one of those. But we have to remember that there's a continuum between Africa and Europe. That's the missing link, and we have to see it like that, because that gives us a better picture of how to deal with each other, how to treat each other as human beings, treat each other from different races. Like we have different environments. Everybody grows up in a different environment, and that environment affects them. It affects them to the core of their being, because it is built into their brain. Their neurons are built on it. Their memories are built on it. Their sensory and perceptions are built on the environment that they grow up in. And so adaptations, it's a two-way thing. I mean, adaptation, you're carving your environment, but your environment's also carving you. So every race has its own environment, and it affects them. It defines who you are. So Christianity was born from Egypt. It was born in Egypt. The symbols of the cross, or the symbols of the Ankh, which is the symbol for the key of life, and it just represents humanity. It represents a bipedal organism, a bipedal large organism. That's what the cross is. Okay, why Jesus happens to be crucified on it is a representation of crucifixion. Of course, crucifixion was a brutal practice back then. The Romans practiced it, and I'm sure other people practiced some kind of primitive form of it before the Romans. And so anyway, so that whole symbol, that symbol of the cross, is the symbol of the key of life, which is found in Egypt, and it represents humanity. That's what it represents, really. So what is Jesus? Jesus is the central figure of Christianity. Who is Jesus? I say what is Jesus because that ties into what I know is Jesus. Jesus is a representation of the Son. Everything that we do on this planet, everything we write, everything we experience and we express, everything we express, we put down on paper, painting, sketching, whatever, science, everything we do is based on the environment that we live in. The sun is the central star here. It is what gives us everything, and Egypt is the basis of that. Egyptology, Egyptian mythology, and Egyptian religion was based on the providence of the sun. You know, the sun provides everything. It gives us energy. It lets crops grow. Everybody knows this. This is not new. We worship the sun. We all worship the sun. We love in the summertime. We go out and we worship the sun. That's what we're doing most of the time. The Egyptians did this on a massive level, on a much deeper level, and on a very primitive level. But it was very very conscious laden. It was very, very like deep and emotional and volatile. It was deep. Actually, it was volatile to some degree, but for the most part, they built a system that stabilized everything. That created symbolism for the forces that really affected their lives. And this is what it comes down to. It comes down to the forces and the things that we see. So I see the sun every morning. That sun is everything to me. And it is built in my genome. It's built in my brain. It's built in my neurons. It's built in millions of years of evolution on this planet. Billions of years of evolution, I'm sorry. So everything, all these religions that we create on this planet are based on our reality, okay? So the whole idea of afterlife, the resurrection, all these things are symbols, of course. Symbols of how this planet is placed, where this planet is placed in with regards to in reference to its star, how the star affects us, how it sets, how it rises, where it sets, where it rises, how close it is, how far it is from us, the moon, where the moon is, how big the moon is. All these different things have made us write what we've written all this time. We've written all these things in ancient books, and we made them religions because. Why did we make them religions? We made them religions because we don't want to lose information. I have a whole other episode, a whole other video that I'm going to be making about information and the evolution of information, because really information is the kind of bottom line thing that's happening in this universe. That's, if you want to explain the universe to somebody, you have to talk about information. You have to talk about what kind of information was there in the beginning, and what kind of information we have now, and what kind of information we will have in the future. So that's the bottom line. So the information is there. It has to continue, and that's why we make religions. We have to make religions. We invented the printing press for religions. and specifically Christianity. The Bible helped us invent the printing press. So therefore, the Bible is a useful product of our species. It's a useful product. Everything we do for a reason. We don't do it because to hurt ourselves. We do it because we want to thrive. We want to survive. So this is the whole concept of Christianity. Christianity takes a man, a symbol, which is the symbol of Christ. It takes a man who's a good man, who is well intended, who has great intentions, helps people, cures people, does all these wonderful miracles, which, by the way, every miracle means something else. It's not a physical miracle. It means something else. It means something that's coming into the forefront of humanity. It's coming, you reap what you sow kind of situation. I'll get into that in a little bit, but I want to go back to the whole symbol of Christ. And the symbol of Christ is a man who is, like I said, good, pure, light enough to walk on water. Okay, and that's another symbolic thing. It's not a real thing. It's basically the sun rays that reflect off the water. It's photons basically. And when we talk about Jesus, we talk about light. Okay, and photons and light. And this brings us back to Egypt. And that is where we worship the sun comes from. We worship the rays of the sun. They built a pyramid that comes down in the shape of a ray, okay, a sun ray. So I'm sure everything it's all tied into that, and it makes sense, because if plants could talk and write and speak, if a plant like a tree or any other plant can talk, and it would talk endlessly about photosynthesis. It would talk about how wonderful it is to feel the light touch it and absorb the photon and take that photon in as energy and produce more of itself. That is its life, its essence, its practice every day. That's what it does. That's what it loves doing. It loves doing nothing more than that. Photosynthesizing and making sugars. So that's if you spoke to a plant, it would, or if a plant could write, ironically, it would talk about photosynthesis, how happy it is for how amazing photons are. Like, we're talking about photons all day long. So that's what we do. That's what we do as humans. We talk, we write, we have that capacity. We have that ability to express ourselves. And it's important to know that the environment is what it influences us. Everything that we see around us, everything, are the sounds, the sight, everything, the colors. Why do people like blondes, for example? People like blondes because they look like the sun. Okay? They're yellow like the sun. And if our sun was red, people would love redheads. Redheads would be the new blondes. Anyways, that's whatever. I'm sure I'm gonna get chewed out for that, but whatever. Let's just keep it in perspective here. So back to what I was thinking about and what I was saying to you about the whole concept of Jesus. What is Jesus? A man who's a pure person who is beaten, who enters a realm of sinful people and is beaten, who's accused of doing horrible things he hasn't done. So basically, he's the ultimate scapegoat. He's the ultimate person who's like this purest as can be, and look at the world, at how horrible it is. Okay, so there's a contrast between the man and the world that this man is in, and I think the whole concept of Jesus, why we made it into a man, is because, of course, the patriarchy and male dominated regions, male dominated consciousness, basically. That's what's caused it. The whole concept of man has to struggle through life. Man has to leave paradise, and he has to struggle to make a living. Everybody does, and that's that symbol of Christ. The symbol of Christ is crucifixion. Crucifixion. What is crucifixion? It's basically human existence. It's just the suffering that we experience in life. It is a symbol of suffering, but the problem is that Because in reality, Jesus is also a symbol of the sun itself, not physical humans or physical anything but the sun itself. It's kind of erroneous to think like this. We can't anthropomorphize. We can't bring down the sun and make it into a human. The sun is the sun. Humans are humans too, and we can radiate our own photons. We can radiate our own knowledge. That's what we can do, and maybe that's the whole concept and behind Christianity. Really, is that as the sun provides for the solar system and provides a haven for life to exist, we can do the same thing as individuals. We can create life itself in different areas, either whether it be having a family or helping to build an ecosystem. Maybe, and that's what I take away from Christianity. I take that away from Christianity because I understand it so deeply that I can't criticize it in any way, because I understand where it comes from. I understand what its usefulness is. I understand what its practicalities are. Every religion has that, and I'm going to go through it with Islam. I'm going to go through it with Buddhism. I'm going to go through it with Hinduism too. I'm going to try to do it with as many religions as I can. But if the deeper you go inside your religion, aside from being a fundamentalist, and I'll go through that as well, because there is a clear-cut line, and I'll explain fundamentalism in a video in of itself, and how it happens in the brain, in the process, how the process occurs. But it's all really about understanding. It's not about interpretation. People will talk to you about, they will say subjective experience, subjectivity. Everybody has a voice. You can't shut me down. I need to speak. I need to say what I want to say, and so there's a difference between speaking and freedom of speech. So freedom of speech is not meant to verify and justify every position, every opinion. Freedom of speech is just meant to enable the act of speaking, to enable the act of talking, to enable for voices to come out, so that information comes out. So freedom of speech, it ensures that we keep talking, okay? But it's what we say. It doesn't matter. We could say anything, but there are certain things that are right, and there are certain things that are wrong. There isn't this gray area between right and wrong, really. It is actually a black and white situation to some degree, and for real reasons, not because black and white is the color of black and white. No, it's not like that. I'm just saying that there are things that are right and there are things that are wrong. So the way you can interpret the Bible, you can interpret it the right way, you can interpret Christianity the right way, or you can interpret it the wrong way. If you take it literally, you're doing it the wrong way. If you're understanding it figuratively, you're doing it the right way. And I understand why now churches and Sunday schools, they don't want to go too deep with these things for kids. All they want to do is just memorize. It's easier to memorize than understand. So what they do is just, it's a ritual, it becomes a repetitive thing, and they need to make it into a repetitive thing because they need it to be a perpetual thing that creates an economy. And that's where everything comes in, where everything starts getting twisted, because once the economy walks into this whole thing, and economy is religion. Religion is very much tied to economy, okay? And Christianity itself created a new economy, okay? In the Middle East and Europe, it created a new economy that kind of like globalized everything in that area, so that it created a larger system where all these different countries can now communicate with each other and can now distribute wealth to each other, maintaining kind of like an empire-based kind of situation. And that's where the whole Roman realm comes from, the whole Roman structure of governance. So that's what Christianity brought. Christianity brings in an economic structure. It builds an economic structure based on Roman ideology, based on Roman ideas, and based on Roman thinking, and Roman, which comes from Greek, which comes from Egypt, which comes from sub-Saharan Africa. again, that's the whole trail of evolution, of information from one area of the world to another. And so we have ourselves a Christian takeover of the Roman Empire. We have a new economy built up based on symbols of Christianity. We have new art. We have all these different things. We have new jobs. It's an economy that's building itself, and that's what religion is, really. That's what Christianity is. Christianity is really an economics based concept. And so back to the symbols, and the symbols that are found in Egypt are found in the Bible on a regular basis. You can't the connection between Egypt and the Bible is obviously Judaism, and Judaism is something that it was a very necessary part of evolution of information, because Judaism created a short form of what the Egyptians did. The Egyptians went nuts. They had, like I said, they had 3,000 years of peace, of a peaceful civilization building, and it was just, and like, they built the pyramids. They built the only standing seven wonders of the world. Okay, the only standing, the only standing member of the seven wonders of the world. They built that, and that was their culmination. Okay, so that was the pinnacle of what they've completed, or not even actually. They completed other things, but it was never to that degree. But they compiled so much information. They wrote so much. They are the beginners of writing. Okay, they are the creators of paper. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible for us to propagate. Information would not propagate. So here we are in the realm of Christianity and Judaism, and Egyptology. So Egyptology comes first. Egyptology was so full of information, so much. It's like reading an entire encyclopedia or a dictionary, basically. So what the Jews come and do is they took that information and they summarized it. So Judaism is like the Coles Notes of Egyptology, and it's fantastic because what they done is they took out the more pertinent parts, the most important information, the stuff that kind of simplifies life. You don't want to go too much into excess. You don't want sophistication too much. But ancient Egypt kind of reminds me of English sophistication, or British sophistication, or North American sophistication. It's how sophisticated a civilization gets, to the point where they just sophisticate the living crap out of themselves until something else takes over. And I think that's what happens with Egypt and Israel. So Egypt, they build their civilization. They write all that stuff. They build all that content and knowledge, and they spew it out throughout the whole region, because Egypt's empire, it was the first empire. They went up all the way up to Turkey, so they kind of influenced that whole region, which we call the Levant. And so what the Jews did, and even if you look at other, like the Phoenicians and Syrians of the time, they took a lot from Egypt as well. So, but the knowledge was there, and it was back and forth. It wasn't just Egypt. It's like the source of everything. No, it's not. But it is actually, to some degree, it is. But the information went to the Jews, and the Jews simplified it, because they're a smaller group of people. They don't have that much to manage, and they don't need that much complexity. So what they've done is they compiled a smaller code for themselves. They took the important information that was produced in Egypt. They simplified it, and then they created their Torah from it. And it was easy. It was easy for them to memorize. It was easy for them to understand. It was easy for them to comprehend, to ritualize, to repeat, to create a small community from, to create a small community that would actually build into a larger community, which is what we have now. So these are the this is and that is the bridge between Egypt and modern Western civilization. Without the Jews, there would have been no connection really, besides the Jews and the Greeks, because the Greeks also play a role in the bridge between Western civilization and Africa. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bridge the gap. I'm trying to create a bridge between the Middle East or I'm trying to create a bridge between Africa and Europe, because we know what the history between the two are. We know what colonization has done, and we know what it does and what it doesn't do. Colonization is not the ultimate. Colonization is a necessary evil. That's for another video. But so that whole the idea here is to build a bridge between Europe and Africa to maintain a structure of wholeness, because we can't forget. We can't say. We can't forget. We can't deplete Africa of its resources, and we can't separate ourselves from our own origin. Okay, we can't do that. We can't. A tree cannot cut its own roots out and decide, hey, I'm just going to get up and walk into the forest. We can't do that. We have to keep our roots in the ground. We have to keep our roots strong, because our roots is what feed us. And that's what I consider Africa to be. I consider Africa as the root system of a tree, of a large tree. And so in Africa and South America are connected continents, or they used to be connected. So they share that same status of being the origin of life. Like everything came out of Africa, sure, and a lot of things were in South America too, right? So people don't really talk about that. They only say Africa, but South America was connected to Africa, and we actually see similar species between the two continents that are not found anywhere else. So, anyways, that's for another video. But back to the whole Christianity, back to the whole Christian symbols and how it propagated in the Western civilization. The concept of the 12 disciples. We have 12 disciples. It's very simple to understand what the 12 disciples were, and it's also easy to understand what the 13th disciple was. This comes back to the Roman realm. Throughout history, and it's not just Romans, it's Greeks, it's Egyptians, it's all, throughout history we have what humans have been trying to do is have been trying to understand their environment. Okay, a lot of time, fish in the sea came out of the sea. They didn't know how to breathe any oxygen. All they had was the ability to function underwater. So they can only understand water. They can't function outside of it. But eventually they started learning. They started coming out, peeking out, and trying to come out of the water and see what the environment was like, and then going back in and then trying to do it again, and then getting the body used to it and getting the genome to start working so that it can adapt. It starts adapting to the environment, to the oxygen in the air and the atmosphere, and how to bring in oxygen. So they did that, and eventually they came out into land, and they evolved even more, and they went crazy, and here we are here. But throughout that whole time, everything that we do, everything that's been done, has been because of survival, is because of exploration, is because of conquering things, is because of coming out and exploring different areas of life, different regions, different atmospheres, different environments. So it's adaptation, and that's what Christianity comes from. Christianity is the adaptation of information from sub-Saharan Africa, from the core of Africa towards Europe, and that's because that path, it's actually locality. It's really local. It's your neighborhood. It's what's your next door neighbor do? Oh, he's a Christian. Okay, cool. Christians kind of like everybody kind of, together. Christians are together here, Buddhists are together here. There's Persian influence in Christianity too. It's not just Egypt. There's Persian influence, but it's not really. It's this is where I think all religions are actually equal. This is where I think all religions should not be religions, should not be their own religion. I think all religions should kind of like go through this filtering process where they come out like you throw them into like a blender and you just blend them. You blend them and then you take out the result and you eat it. That should be religion. It should just be one thing. And I think that's what science is trying to do. Science is trying to do that. It's trying to build a base of knowledge that says, hey, you know what? Forget the old knowledge. Forget the old traditional knowledge. That's just old stories. These are just old experiences, old perceptions, old perspectives. Let's do something else. Let's do something based on reality and based on measurement, based on math, and based on science itself. So that's what science is trying to do, and it's fine. That's okay, because that's what science is. That's what science does. But we can't. But it's not there yet, and I don't think it will get there, because there's a gap between science and religion. There's a gap between what scientists think religion is and what religious people think religion is. Religious people do it for the community, and they just repeat the same rituals over and over again just to be with each other and to build community, and that's fine. Okay, what's written in the books, yes, the devil is in the details, of course, but what's written in the book, some stuff is questionable, of course, but for the most part, really, it's necessary. Okay, they need to do something, and we can't replace that with science by itself, because science itself has things in it that are very much like religion. Okay, it's you can call it whatever you want. You can call science is rigorous. Science measures. Science falsifies itself. It's constantly falsifying itself. But yeah, that's fine. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because I'm sure that if you go back to when religion was first created, when the Bible was first written, or the books were first compiled, I'm sure they were going through the exact same thing that science is going through right now. They were making up theories. They were coming up with different ideas of how to write the book, how to even compile the book, how to put the book together, what books to choose, what books to throw out. All it was exactly the same thing that what's happening right now, where research papers are being written, research papers are being verified, research papers are being thrown out, and then the research papers that are wrong being pushed in because of economics, because of money. So that was happening back then too. So it's the same process. It's just a different time and space. Okay, and that's where Christianity comes into play. Christianity plays that role. It plays that role of building knowledge in this region, and it's not. So I don't when I hear the word Christianity, I don't think of the sacredness of Christ. I don't think of the Virgin Mary. I don't think of, which I'm going to talk about in just a second too. But it doesn't. It's not about that. It's more about Christianity is just a description of the human experience from this time to this time. And this is where the whole Anno Domini thing, the year of our Lord, it's all building calendar. That's all that they're doing. Christianity is based on a calendar. It's based on the Julian calendar, and then eventually gave us the Gregorian calendar, which we use today. So it's all based on calendar. The 12 disciples, coming back to the 12 disciples, the 12 months of the year. Okay, the Son of God, which is the sun, the central figure in Leonardo da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper, is the sun, the actual star that we rotate around, that we orbit, the star that gives us everything, the star that is so amazing. It's not even, and I think this is where the whole fervor of Christianity comes from. The whole, I feel Jesus. Jesus is, how Christians feel about Jesus. This is how I feel about the Son, and I think it's the same feeling, It's the same feeling, different words, different descriptions of the same feeling. I'm feeling it. I mean, my body is feeling it. What is really happening? The chemistry in my body when I'm feeling my passion for my religion, or for the way I conceive of life, and what I think about the sun. The passion that I feel is the same neurochemical happening in myself as it is happening in a religious person. So it's the same idea, it's the same concept, but they see it from a different angle. They see it from a man and the whole patriarchy, and that man struggles. And yes, man has struggled, and it's rightfully so, because men do get crucified. Men are the ones who fight the wars. They do all the dirty work. They do all the hunting and gathering. They have to face fear, animals, fright, pain, death, all kinds of things to protect the family. And that's been their traditional role. Eventually that might change, and we're seeing that change now. Of course, to what detriment, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to go into that in another different video, but the whole idea of Christianity is to build a system that works, a system, a structure, and a structure, and that structure is based on information, and it's based on protecting information and making sure to propagate this information. And this is the preaching, the fishing. I'm a fisherman of men. I'm a fisherman of men thing. So that's where it all comes from. It's all about building a structure and a community. It's all we're trying to live. Every one of us is trying to live. So Christianity is based on the Son. The Son of God is the Son of God, which is God is the creator of the universe. If you accept it like that, then that's how you explain that. You say that if God is the creator of the universe, then the Son of God is really that star, a single star that has given us life, and this life is really rare. Like, it's extremely rare. The more we study the cosmos, the more we realize that life itself is almost a miracle. It's almost like I'll get into that in a different video, but really the culmination of it is that life is so difficult to create that you have to have all these stars and galaxies. It's so difficult to create life. It's not easy. It's not like there are so many conditions that need to be fulfilled in order to have intelligent life forming. I'll go into that in the solar system video that I'm going to be making, and I'm going to enjoy the crap out of it because I've really studied this stuff, and I'm really, really deep into it, and I know that there's something strange there is something strange. This universe is strange, everything that we experience is kind of strange to us, but there's something warm about it. There's something interesting about it that's really compelling, and obviously it has to be compelling, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But back to Christianity, and what I really want to talk about is the whole concept of the 12 disciples being the 12 months of the year, and how the sun moves around the earth. The earth moves around the sun. And so I'm going to end it here because I think this video is really long at this point. And I'm kind of talking to myself, or just to you guys and girls, of course, and whatever. I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to continue on with the virgin birth, because I'm going to start again with the 12 disciples, because the 12 disciples are related to months, and months are also taken from emperors, Roman emperors, and how they ruled back then, and what kind of atmospheres they created as they ruled. And after that, I'm going to get into the virgin birth. I'm going to get into the three wise kings. I'm going to get into all that in the next video. Okay, so I'll talk to you guys, or I'll see you guys soon.